Hi, this is Janine Miller, and you are watching Pieces of Victory. Today, we have on our show, Dajah. Dajah is here to tell her story of how she was tortured beyond belief in this lockdown residential program called Circle of Hope Girls Ranch, located in Missouri. It is also a Lester Roloff program. He is the mastermind behind New Bethany, Hephzibah House, Victory Christian Academy, Genesis by the Sea, Agape Home for Boys, The Lighthouse. She is an activist amongst a survival community, and she is here to bravely tell her story. Please welcome to the show, Dajah Potter.
Okay.
Hi, Dajah. Welcome to the show, Pieces of Victory. It is such a pleasure to have you on the show today. And you are making a difference and being a part of the change to prevent child abuse in teen programs. I'm curious to know, how did it all start before you got locked into this residential program? By the way, it's called Circle of Hope Girls Ranch, located in Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Dajah was locked in to this facility. They were highly abusive. How did it start prior to being locked in? Can you tell us the story?
Like how it escalated to me being sent to this boarding school. When I was littler, when I was younger, like 16, 15, 14 even, I just had like really bad behavioral issues. I would run away a lot. I would lie a lot. I would steal a lot. Nothing like, no like criminal activity, but just like enough to drive my parents to the point where they didn't feel that they could help me anymore. So they sent me to a boarding school where they wanted me to learn and like kind of get Christian values to like become a better kid, I guess. But it didn't end up like that.
Why were you running away? Do you want to go into that? Is there any particular reason?
Mainly when I ran away, it was because I was upset at my parents for some reason. I'm adopted, so my biological mom had contacted me for the first time, and my adopted mom told me that I couldn't speak to her. So I got upset and ran away. She made me block her on Facebook completely, so I can like have any association with her.
Oh, so you were trying to get in touch with your biological parents, and your adopted family didn't want to hear anything of it?
Yeah,
and they didn't want you to do it, and that's where the friction started.
Mm-hmm.
Did they ever think about going to counseling to have a third party?
I had been in counseling for about like 10 years, and it just didn't seem to be working. And then my counselor agreed with my mother that I probably shouldn't be in contact with my biological family. So
were they dysfunctional? Is that why, or just negative, or what was the reason why?
She didn't trust my biological mother because, as you can see, I have burns on my skin, and she's the reason for these burns.
Oh no!
That's why I'd gotten taken away from her in the first place. So she kind of didn't trust her. And then actually, like, when I turned 18, I went and met her. And then a year later, she tried to scam me out of my Social Security. So I stopped.
What? Oh my God, that's scary. Okay, so I can see both sides of the spectrum. One, you're a normal kid. You just want to know who your biological family is. You're curious.
Mm-hmm.
And you want that love too. But at the same token, she is very dangerous to be around.
Yeah.
And your adopted family, they are right. They're putting you in harm's way. And they knew that. So it was a catch-22. You wanted to get close to them. You wanted that forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
I would say maybe supervise the situation, but it's really opening up a can of worms. So I can see both sides of the spectrum. It's normal to be a child wanting your biological family. Maybe you didn't feel complete without them. Is that what was going on?
I think mainly what it was just curiosity.
Curiosity. Okay. I can understand both sides. I really can. So you were acting out. Counseling wasn't working. How did you get there? Did they kidnap you in the middle of the night? There are companies that do that pick up the kids, or did they get you into it?
Yes. It was the first option. it literally felt like kidnapping, but with like adult like parents' permission, I guess, because I was laying there in the middle of the night. I'd actually gotten back from my first boarding school that I had to be kicked out of because I kept running away from there. I really didn't want to be in a boarding school, so I would run away from boarding schools like and try to get home somehow, even though like my home was like miles and miles away from where I was
And
located.
how was that boarding school? Was it decent?
Yeah, it was pretty decent. It was a boarding school.
Especially compared to a camp here in America, that's a torture camp.
Yeah,
Circle of Hope Girls Round. You would say it was pretty decent. You just wanted to be home.
yeah, I just didn't want to be there, so I kept running away. And my mom says, if you run away one more time, I'm going to send you to a place in Missouri. And these people, I hear they don't let girls go for any sort of reason. But I wouldn't listen. And I ran away, and then my mom took me home, and I had no idea I was going to a boarding school, another boarding school. I just thought I was just going to stay home. I was
Oh,
like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a better person. I'm not going to run away anymore. I'm going to listen to my counselors. I'm going to be a good kid, basically, was my
right.
thinking.
You learned your lesson at this.
Yeah, I had basically learned my lesson at that point. But then like I was laying there, like it's like 12 o'clock in the morning, like basically midnight, and just my bedroom lights just fly on, and I just see like these people standing there in my doorway, and I've never met them before, and they're telling me to pack my stuff up and like to get in this car, and we're going to Missouri. And like I'd heard about the boarding school, and I just started like crying, like, Mom, please, though, I don't want to go. Please just give me another chance. And all this.
Kidnapping. These strangers, there's two of them inside your bedroom. You don't know what's going on. You weren't anticipating this. They wake you up in the middle of the night. What time do you think it is?
It's like 12 o'clock.
Wow.
Maybe a little bit after that, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. So it's pretty early in the morning.
Did you think that they were just breaking into your house at this point because you didn't even know what was going on?
To be honest, when they had like when I like saw them, it kind of like clicked in my head that they were there to take me to boarding school.
Oh
Because
no.
I had like overheard my mother on the phone with them, but I didn't know who she was talking to. And she was just saying stuff like, "Oh, can you pick her up and take her to this place?" And I asked her, "Who are you talking to?" And she said, "No, and I'm just talking to my friend." Or like she basically like lied to me and say that she was talking to a friend of hers in Tennessee or something like that. So I was like, "Oh, okay, so whatever." But then like when I saw them, I was just like, "Oh,
You knew, right?
yeah." And then they told me to like pack my stuff up and like pack up all my shirts and stuff like that. I had uniform for the boarding school because I had just been to another boarding school that had the same standards. So like long skirts and like long sleeve, long shirts and like stuff that's supposed to be modest, like
Right.
really modest. So I just packed up everything, and there wasn't like a fight or anything between the escorts. I just got in the car because I knew I wasn't going to win against them because they were trained to like keep kids in the car and like keep them from running away.
Oh no. So you
But
were smart enough to not try because it would have been worse for you. They would have
yeah,
rejected you.
until like 6 or 7 hours later, I decided that I was going to like pull a fast one and like try to get out of the car. But I tried like multiple times, and like I was just like I was vicious back then. I wasn't even playing around. I was literally like fighting and like biting and like kicking and stuff like that, but they will not let you out of the car for any reason. They actually ended up handcuffing me to the seat, and every time I would try to like struggle at all, they'd push down on the handcuffs so it would cut into your skin,
Oh my
and
God.
you wouldn't be able to get out at all.
That's awful.
I think at one point, I had tried to get out like at least one more time, and then what he'd done, he'd accidentally shoved his elbow like really deep into my stomach, and then after that, I was just kind of like dazed because it was just so hard. And then I think like 10 minutes later, I just threw up all over the place because it was just such a hard force, and I rode the rest of the way to Missouri with like puke on my skirt. And then I showed up to the boarding school like that with like bloody wrist and puke on my skirt.
Oh my God. Now, I want to ask you another question. These particular people that brought you there, some of them are outside sources, but some of them are part of the staff at these schools. So was it part of the staff or was it an outside source?
I do not know, but they kind of acted.
Never seen them again at the
No, I never
school?
saw them again, but I'm
Okay.
pretty.
They're
They,
probably an outside source.
the way they talked and the way they behaved kind of didn't sound like they were from an outside source. It kind of sounded like they were part of the systems, the schools that we've been talking about, but they weren't part of that particular school.
Right. And I understand exactly what you're saying because I was locked up in a cult myself. So I get it. They were all part of that cult system, but they didn't belong to one particular one. They just knew the system and they knew the routine and they knew what they could get away with. And they knew the drill. They were all in on it.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. I'm curious at how much your parents spent for this, or do you not know?
I do not know particularly. I'm pretty sure my mom would tell me if I asked her, but I have no idea how much she spent.
I'm just curious about that, and we'll get into a little bit more how much this place cost your parents as the story goes. So now you're at the Circle of Hope Girls Ranch in Missouri. And what is the first thing that you see? The pastor from hell, or?
The first thing I saw was we were pulling into the driveway. It's a very big driveway. It goes all around the campus. You can like drive around in like a circle around the dorm building. The first thing I saw was cameras that said "Smile, you're on camera." So that was a red flag. So like the whole campus was rigged up with security cameras watching you at all times. And so at that point, I really wasn't processing anything because it was a 16-hour drive from Florida all the way to Missouri. And then I was just tired and dazed. I didn't get any sleep. We'd been driving through the night. But I remember distinctly that being the first thing I saw and being like, well, that's kind of weird. They're watching us.
Right. An invasion of privacy.
And then we pulled up and the first person I saw was the way he looks. He just looks like a cute old grandpa, you know. He doesn't look like he can like hurt anyone at all. He looked kind of nice. And then of course I saw his wife and they were waiting for me because the escorts had called him explaining that I was like putting up a fight and that was probably going to be difficult when I arrived.
They send you to the showers to delouse?
They didn't send me to the showers until after the intake process, and the intake process was when I kind of picked up on the fact that it was an abusive home.
Oh no! What was the clue that gave it away?
Well, so they unhandcuffed me. I went into the office where you do your intake, and your intake is where they're just like, okay, here's the rules, here's what you can and cannot do. You're not allowed to speak, and all this other things, like just basically like putting you on. They're explaining that you're not going to have any freedom there whatsoever. And then I was just crying the entire time because I didn't know them and I'd just been ripped away from my family. Like
Sure.
I didn't get to say goodbye to my sisters, my dog, my brother. My brother was asleep. I was just like gone. And
you were just trying to digest that part of it, not the abusive side of it. You were just trying to digest being abandoned.
Yeah, and like not even abandoned. I felt extremely betrayed because my mother had lied to me, and she just like.
Sure.
But anyways, I was crying, and he asked me, "Did the handcuffs hurt when they put them on?" Because my wrists were like bleeding, and he's like, "Did the handcuffs hurt?" And I didn't answer him because I was crying, and so he just slammed my face into the table, and he asked, "Did the handcuffs hurt?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he was like, "You know that like maneuver where you like take somebody's like arm and like you hold it behind their back and then you like push up so your body's working against you?" That's what he was doing, and it hurt a lot. But
he sounds like he's concerned about the handcuffs, but yet he's slamming you against the table. That's crazy.
I don't think he was asking it as like he's concerned about me. I think he was just like trying to wave it in my face that that's what happens when you misbehave or something like that.
Right. He was reinforcing that it's justified.
And so that's what he asked me. And then the next thing he asked me a question, and I said yes. And he like grabbed my jaw and like squeezed it really hard. And he said, "It's yes, sir. You don't respond to me any other way." So I think that's when it clicked with me that it was an abusive boarding school. and it
That,
also proved with me that I was probably not going to get out.
oh no, that's awful.
Yeah, it is, but after that, they gave me my uniform, which is like a jumper and like a shirt underneath the jumper, and then they let me go upstairs and take a shower.
What year is this?
This was 2016.
You knew it was going to be an abusive school just by the way their actions were. He actually held you by the jaw and said, "It's a yes, sir."
Mm-hmm.
That's awful. And then you got your clothes.
Uh-huh. The clothing was it's supposed to be quote unquote like modest, and it's stuff that you would expect like nuns to wear, I guess. It's like skirts that go all the way down to your ankles, and the only people who could wear skirts were like pink shirts and above. And there's a whole shirt system that kind of played out kind of like the military, but if you weren't a pink shirt and you're an orange shirt or below, you had to wear jumpers. And it's kind of a jumper was gosh, how do I explain a jumper? It's not like the orange jumpsuits that you see like in prison. A jumper is just like it's kind of like a dress like this, but underneath the dress you're wearing like some sort of shirt, and then you have it's not going to be knee length. It's going to be like down to your shins or something like that. And they were just hideous things. Honestly, everything that we wore was hideous. We didn't get a choice on what we wore either. They had a sort of shed that had that held a bunch of clothes that were donated to the school, and of course they had to look over the clothes to make sure it was appropriate or met their requirements. And it just like you lost all your freedoms, like the freedom to express yourself through clothing was completely lost, and you just be wearing this ugly tattered clothing. And not only that, but your clothes were washed once a week, so you'd have two work outfits. So while one work outfit was in the wash, the other was being worn. So you'd have a long day of work crew, and you'd be very sweaty, and you'd just take off your work clothes, you'd put it in your closet, and you'd put it back on the next day, and it smelled very, very putrid. It smelled very, very bad.
Did you have to wear that to school? So when schoolwork, were the girls wearing that during school?
Yes. You just wore your work outfits all day, every day.
So it smelled inside the school.
Yeah, absolutely. And then your pajamas were washed once a week. You only got one set of pajamas. So if you had like cold sweats or anything like that, you'd just be wearing sweaty, nasty, dirty, grimy clothing. And then if you're not wearing all those things, you're wearing your church outfit, and we only went to church every Sunday. So church was nice because that was the day we didn't have to work, and that was the day you were allowed to wear clean clothing, apart from after washed it.
Because they want to show for the parents.
Right. And everyone.
They don't want dirty children going to church.
Mm-hmm. They treated us like humans, so that was another reason everyone liked to go to church, because they treated us like we were actually human beings and that we had purpose and significance. But so everyone loved going to church, and I don't think the church knew what was going on.
But these people need to be prosecuted.
Absolutely.
Really and I feel that everything is just being swept underneath the carpet. It's awful. It's despicable what's happening. Mm-hmm. And I want to say you're about my sixth survivor from the Circle of Hope Girls Ranch alone. I have done 12 interviews since I've been laid off. You're my 13th. You're about my sixth one just from the Circle of Hope Girls Ranch. I hope America wakes up and smells what is going on underneath our noses.
Absolutely.
May I ask, did you report to the police?
Not immediately. I didn't report anything until like a few months ago when I started the movement against Circle of Hope. After that, girls were saying, I got this police officer, please send a testimony, please send a statement. And after that, I started contacting everything. After I created Stop Circle of Hope, I went to everyone. I went to governors of Missouri. I went to like police officers. I went all out. I went to people in Florida. I went to governors in Florida. I went to Dr. Phil. I even emailed the president. I'm not even joking. I emailed the
Good
president.
for you.
Of course, I didn't get a response, but I just felt like it's his country. He should know what's happening in his country.
Right.
But
You're putting yourself out there, and the more noise that we make, the better it will get. I can only get better.
yeah, just as long as people just don't get tired of talking about it, like don't get tired of telling their testimonies, because a lot of movements lose momentum because people just get sick of saying the same thing over and over again. But
Right. And every girl's story is unique.
mm-hmm.
What goes on inside is the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same abuse. And if you were just recently there 4 years ago, Carly was there 3 years ago, and there was an alleged rape there with Carly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how could it be that some girl from 10 years ago has the same story of what's going on in this girls' camp that you do? There's story after story, police report after police report, because eventually you did contact the police. So there is a report. And the school is still running today. It needs to shut down. So let's go back inside the camp, this horrifying camp for children.
Absolutely.
There's a ranking with shirts. Do you want to go over the ranking with the colored shirts?
Sure. Okay, so the shirt colors are neon shirt, black shirt, there's orange shirt, pink shirt, green shirt, red shirt, and then there's a purple shirt. Now this varied throughout the years. I was told that there were different shirt colors such as a blue shirt, and there was a shirt color called a brown shirt, but when I was there, those colors didn't exist, and we were just stuck with the colors I mentioned previously. So starting at the lowest ranking is a neon shirt or a black shirt.
Okay.
A neon shirt, it's very bright, it's a very vibrant color, and it has reflectors on the sleeves. And what it's supposed to do, it's supposed to indicate when someone's running. It's supposed to help people find that girl when she's running away. The only people who are put in neon shirts are people who are at risk of running away, like people who've run away in the past when they were with their families, or people who tried to run away while they're being escorted to the boarding school. So when I got there, I was given a neon shirt because they suspected that I would try to run away, which I did later, but that's we can talk about that later.
Okay.
The neon shirts have the same status as a black shirt. Black shirts essentially were treated like, when you're at the boarding school, you're not treated as a human much, but like when you're a black shirt, you're just completely
Worse.
You're worse. You're basically like, you're treated like a slave, and you're treated like you're nothing. People like turn your noses up at you. As a black shirt, what a black shirt means is that you've come to the boarding school because you've been rebellious, you've had bad behavior, but while at the boarding school you still consistently have bad behavior, so we're going to make you feel like less of a human being, so you submit and think, hey, maybe I want to get out of this shirt color, so I'm going to be a good person now. And by good person, I don't mean like good behavior, I mean doing what the and believing what they say and acting like.
So even if that's abusive,
Yeah, even if it's
quote
abusive,
unquote good behavior, according to this.
even if it's abusive, it's if it's what they believe, they're okay. They want that. They want you to become.
They are orchestrating girls abusing other girls. They encourage girls to abuse other girls.
Absolutely. Black shirts, what it is you need to conform as soon as you get to the boarding school. And so the reason I had gotten demoted to a black shirt was because I was speaking. I would try to make the girls laugh. I'd try to make them smile because they just look so depressed. They look miserable. But what I was doing was, in their terms, called a thing called talking out. And it's where you talk unnecessarily and when you talk too much, essentially. So because I was talking and because I was trying to make girls laugh, they demoted me to this lower shirt color.
So you couldn't even have a personality that was happy and trying to snap girls out of their depression. You couldn't, there was no comedy. There couldn't be any comedy. You couldn't show your true colors.
Right.
At all.
So when you're in the black shirt, what they do is they sit there and they think of ways to piss you off. They think of ways to make you feel lower than yourself. So when we went out to work, black shirts had to shovel horse poop all day long, and you do that for 8 hours. And every 2 hours, every 1 hour, you're allowed to get water, but that was your only break, and that break lasted for 5 minutes. So you're working out there for 8 hours, and you smell like horse crap, and you don't smell good. Another thing they did to black shirts was certain food punishments, like they made them eat. The only thing they're allowed to eat at one time was bologna, and it was just like very thick slabs of bologna. And there's nothing wrong with bologna, but eat that for breakfast, lunch, dinner, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Oh
Um,
my God.
for like months and months and months. And another thing they made us eat were large bulbs of onions. So you'd be eating these onions like apples, and your breath would smell bad, and you'd smell like terrible onions when you got to church. And another thing they made us eat was like cold foods, because according to them, we weren't worthy of a warm meal because we were rebellious. We were childs of Satan. So they gave us like things like cold grits. And it's not like the Quaker stuff you get off the shelf at the store. It's just like farmer's market. So it has no flavor, no salt, no butter, no nothing. And it's very gritty. It's very hard when you eat it. So it takes you a while because you're just trying to chew on this nasty, gritty stuff. And then another thing we had to eat was cold rice, and that literally tasted like gasoline, and it was very hard to chew. I almost choked on it one time because it was rock solid, and then they got on to me for choking, saying I was faking.
That's awful. So you couldn't even have a normal reaction. Okay, so let's just say you refused it. You refused it. Nope, it's okay. I'll pass, because you're thinking no eating is maybe better at some point.
Well, you can.
What happened to
you? What they would do is they take it. Two things could happen. It's a different outcome depending on whether you're on their good side or you're on their bad side. If you're on their good side, they'll take it, they'll wrap it up, and you'll just eat it for the next day. And you'll have it cold. Of course, you're not going to warm it up. Same things would happen to the pink shirts or higher shirts. If you didn't finish the meal, they'd wrap it up, they put it in the fridge, and you'd have it the next day cold, freezing cold. If you were on their bad side, they'd sit there and they'd make you eat it, or they'd force you to eat it, like saying you're not leaving this table until you eat all your food, or they'll give you like twice as much, and they'll say you have to eat that now because you refused to eat your food. Some girls actually had to eat so much food that they vomited, and that's the only time you could stop eating was after you puked. That was like the ringing of the bell, like saying, okay, she can't do it anymore, take your food away. But that was if they're yeah.
You ever witness anyone being forced to eat their own vomit?
No, I have not, like firsthand, but there was this one time, there was this girl, she I forgot what she had done, but she was always getting in trouble. But she had gone to the office and she was forced to eat something, and she went upstairs to the bathroom, and I guess she might have puked or something like that. But I remember seeing one of the purple shirts coming downstairs with a cup full of what looked like puke. And she went down to the office. Now, the office is a very secluded place, and what happens in the office, you can't hear it, you can't see it. I mean, sometimes you can hear what's in the office, because sometimes you'd be hearing a girl screaming or begging or something like that. Or, but she went down to the office, and I heard the door close, and I hear this girl just start crying and screaming, like, you just saying, drink it, you're gonna drink it, or something like that.
So basically, they collected her vomit and then did it in the office so nobody else could see it.
Yeah, I think when I was there, things were done a little bit more secretively, because girls were speaking up back then, but they weren't speaking out on this level, but they were receiving complaints from parents and whatnot. And so
when I was there, they tried butts a little bit. Okay, we're not doing it out in the open now, we're doing it in the office.
Yeah, when I was there, they tried to do things a little bit more secretively and kind of more off limits, you know. So there's some things that happened that I heard, but I could never see with my own eyes. So neon shirts and black shirts have the same status. You're treated the same way if you're a black shirt or a neon shirt. Then you have an orange shirt. When you first come in, you either go into a neon shirt or you go into an orange shirt. And an orange shirt essentially means you're a new student. It's supposed to signify to the other shirt colors that you don't know what you're doing, and you're new here, and you still need to be taught some of the ways. You still need to be taught how to conform. So if you get there, you have a thing called 3 days of grace. You have a guide that comes and teaches you, kind of like a buddy, and they'll talk to you and they'll tell you, okay, you can't do this, you can do this, don't say that, you're not allowed to speak, or something like that.
Right. And how long were you on buddy for?
Until you got promoted to the next shirt color, or until brother said, okay, she's learned enough now, she can function on her own.
Will that last a month, 2 months, or it all depends?
It all depends on like the girl's behavior, and if he notices that she still doesn't get it or something like that. For me, I had a buddy for like 2 months, and that was like after I got promoted.
2 months. Let's
Yeah.
describe to the audience about Buddy. For those that don't know Buddy, did you have to say a certain amount of feet behind or in front? Was it 3 feet in front?
3 feet in front. You were not allowed to be behind your guide. You had to be in front of them at all times, because you were not allowed to be out of the supervision of anyone, especially not your guide, because the guide could actually get in a lot of trouble if they're not like behind them. You know what I mean?
2 months is a long time for that degradation.
Yeah, it's just like someone on your tail, someone constantly watching you, someone telling you how to clean, how to act.
What happens if you broke away from 3 feet? Let's say she couldn't keep up with you. And this is a student, by the way. A student behind her, following her, watching her every move, telling her what the rules are. If you got out of the 3 feet,
it kind of depends. If you got out of the 3 feet and someone notices that it's the guide's fault, that the guide wasn't paying attention, the guide is going to be punished in some sort of way. But if the guide is yelling at you and saying you need to get within 3 feet of me, and you keep walking away or you don't hear her, you could actually be tackled, because you're considered running away, because you're out of that zone, or you could just get punished in some sort of other way. So the normal punishment was just push-ups or some sort of exercise like that.
So there's a lot of pressure on the helpers. There's a lot of pressure on the buddies.
And that's what I think a lot of people are missing, because it wasn't just pressure on the lower shirts. There was so much more pressure on the higher shirts, because
Exactly.
You have to think like, and if you don't do it exactly how they say, you're going to be in much more trouble.
They're delegating abuse. So they're cloning themselves as abusers to the children that are in there, and the children are designated to abuse, and if they don't abuse, they get abused.
Right. Gosh, it was tough. But anyways, on to the pink shirts. Pink shirts were just there. What a pink shirt meant is that you're not new, and you're not bad enough to be a black shirt, but you're not good enough to be a higher shirt. So you're just like a C. You're like a C average, C plus, maybe a B. I think my favorite color was a pink shirt, because you didn't have so much responsibility, and you didn't have the degradation of a black shirt.
That makes sense. That you were kind of in the middle.
And it was easy to like be out of the radar as a pink shirt, especially if you've already conformed, and your job was just to stand there, take orders, and not speak at all. So that was pretty easy. I can do that. So
if you're in that kind of world, you get that. You get that, and I get that.
I didn't want to. When you're there, you don't want to be noticed. You don't want to be seen, because
you're a target.
Yeah, if you're a target and you're getting punished in some sort of way. Now pink shirts, they did get in trouble sometimes, but that's if you. It's kind of difficult to say, because as you can see, it's very strict to the point where you have to act basically like a robot, and you're not allowed to feel any emotion. So if you could get to that point, you were fine. But some people were humans; they were just very emotional. So they would act like a human, and they'd get punished for it.
Did you ever do you have struggles with being detached? Detached and acting emotionless at times today?
A little bit, just a little bit.
Me too.
Not as much as I used to, but when I first got home, I know that as soon as I got home, I would just be like, I was obedient, which is a good thing, but I think I was overly obedient, and it concerned my parents, because they'd say something to me, I'll be like, yes ma'am, yes sir, and I wouldn't say anything, or I'd repeat behaviors that I did in boarding school, because that's how I was brainwashed to be.
An autopilot.
And then they would just be like, Dajah, we're your parents. You don't have to say that to us, or you don't have to clean all the time. You can relax, Dajah. You don't have to act like that anymore.
Wow.
but I think I've broken out
That's
of that.
good that your parents acknowledge that, because there are some that'll think, oh, my child has just completely changed. They're not seeing anything wrong with it. It's
Yeah.
almost like the Stepford Wives community, but it's a Stepford children community. So now you're just a robot without a mind and you're on autopilot. And there is something very wrong with that. Okay, so back to the shirt. So pink is mainly in the middle. It's neutral. Yeah. You can kind of be under the radar. It sounds like a better option when you're in that hellhole.
Now, if brother or like your supervisors suggest about that you're responsible and they can trust you to like obey the rules and enforce the rules how they want you to enforce them, you get promoted to a thing called a pink shirt supervisor. Now you still wear the pink shirt, but on top of your pink shirt you wear a little
Which
pin.
shirts was designating abuse? Was it the purple shirts?
It's the pink shirt supervisors, the green shirts, the red shirts, and the purple shirts, because those are the shirt colors that fall under the supervisor status. When you have the pink shirt supervisors, they have the pink shirt, but they wear a pin on their shirt to like symbolize that they are a pink shirt, but they're in authority. They supervise everyone that's below them, which of course is the orange, black, and neon shirts, and they tell them what to do and they tell them how to do it. They're really like the first level of authority, and then the second level of authority is the green shirts, and they supervise the supervisors and the shirts underneath that one. And then you have the red shirts, and they supervise the green shirts, the supervisors under there, and then the lower shirts. And then you have the purple shirts, which there weren't a lot of purple shirts because it's such a high shirt color. What it was is they were over the entire dorm building. And so they supervised everyone all together. And it's one thing to supervise the lower shirts, but it's a second whole ordeal when you have to supervise the supervisors, because you have to give them push-ups when they don't do their job, and then you have to give the lower shirts push-ups when they speak or do anything wrong, and it's very exhausting. And on top of all that, punishing them, you have to write down what their punishment was and what they did wrong, and you have to remember everything that happened that day. And like I said, it's very strict, and it's so easy to like step out of line. It's so easy to get punishment for something. So imagine being a supervisor late at night, having to write down everything you had to give them push-ups for.
Oh my God. Not only that, but they're one step below the owners of the facility. And now they're kind of they're a target. They're more so a target for them to come down on them. And would you say that the owners of this facility, this hellhole, are encouraging, not, it's beyond encouraging, demanding, orchestrating other girls to bully other girls?
That's a tricky question. Sometimes, to be honest, it was just the fact that it's a bunch of teenagers, with like, they have cycles, they're angry, they just got ripped away from their families, and some girls have been away from their families for like 3 years, some of them 5 years, hadn't seen home for 5 years. So it's just a boiling pot of just a bunch of angry people, and this girl gets angry at this girl. And I think in general what it was is just, they're teenagers, they don't know what they're doing, and sometimes they just bully themselves because they're just so angry about what's happening around them. Would encourage them to like treat us a certain way, and they'd actually reward supervisors for treating certain girls poorly for doing something they didn't like.
So they're encouraged to abuse and to bully. And then girls, it sounds like. And then what about their anger issues? Do you feel like they had anger issues too, and the girls were just emulating that as well?
Yeah, definitely. Particularly, the main owner, the CEO of Circle of Hope, he had a lot of anger issues, but what he'd like to say is that he'd gotten over his anger issues, but it was clear he still had a lot of anger issues. And what would happen that I'm starting to pick up on is that he would take out his anger on the wife, and the wife wanting to like escape the abuse, or like wanting to escape being the victim of the abuse, she would like turn it around on the girls so that his anger was directed at us. So she'd yell at us for random things, and then she'd go and get him like, oh, can you believe what she's doing? She did this. What are you gonna do about it? You know what I'm saying? And then so the anger would be directed at us, and we'd just feel everything.
So
And
she's taking it off her and putting it on you, so the heat is off of her.
yeah, that's what I've been picking up.
Right.
It's been a long time since I've been there, but I've always wondered why she was like that. She wasn't the one abusing us. She wasn't the one with the anger issues, but it was like she would try to like look and like pick through, see what I can like get them in trouble for, so that the anger is directed from off of me to them. You know what I mean?
That makes sense. It was kind of like a survival mechanism for her.
Yeah, it's actually very tragic if you think about it, because I thought that all of us were the victims, but it's not just us. It's them too. It's them too.
It's a pattern.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the owners kissing and making out after they would tackle a girl or abuse a girl?
No, not directly like after that, but I would see them be like really lovey-dovey and like huggy and like just very affectionate towards one another after yelling at us or like doing that sort of thing. But like I said, I didn't see a whole lot of the stuff that other girls saw in the past.
Sure,
Because
I was just curious. But you did see them being lovey-dovey after abusing other girls, and then
yes,
at a later time they would be lovey-dovey to each
yes.
other. Okay, I don't know if I want to leave that in or not. I'll have to decide. I still think it's twisted.
Mhm.
That's still demented.
It's not even the fact that it's a cult and they follow the ways of the cult. I think it's a lot of things that they went through in their past, because they what from what I've heard, they've been through abuse and they've been through a lot of things, and so instead of becoming better, they essentially just magnified it and they want it to be taken out on someone else. You know what I mean?
It's a pattern.
It's just like a very vicious system, and like no matter where you are, you're just like, it's miserable. And then
Right.
on top, and you have all this responsibility, and it's a lot of responsibility because, believe it or not, they weren't there 50% of the time. It was just the supervisors, and then they would just depend on the supervisors to take care of all these girls. And you're watching girls that are younger than you, and you're watching girls that are the same age as you, and you're watching girls that are like older than you,
Right.
and all this responsibility and all this stress. My hair literally would start turning gray because it was so stressful. And I was 16,
Wow.
16, 17.
Let me just add, this is a job. This
Yeah.
is an actual job. You are acting as staff, depending on your hierarchy level.
Mm-hmm.
You are part of a job without pay. This
Right.
is slavery. So
Yes.
you were doing staff work as a child and not getting paid for it. Can you tell me what else you weren't getting paid for? What else did they have you doing around that place?
We had a lot of work crews. In the summertime, work crews would just be all day, every day except for Sunday. If we had schooling, out of summertime, it would be 5 hours of work crew afterwards. But I think primarily what their motto was, it wasn't a said motto, but it was kind of an implied motto. The girls always have to be working whatever they're doing. So there's not a time where they're just like, okay, let's relax and let's like do our nails, let's do our hair, anything like
Right?
that.
There was
You're,
no free time.
you're working, 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 working. You do school, you eat, you sleep, you work, and you work, and you work. And it was just so repetitive. And you go, work crew would take place outside. So whether it was blazing hot or freezing cold, you're outside and you're working for a lot of hours. Like literally, you're not working like, oh, let's just pick a few flowers, let's pick some weeds. Let's go pet some horses. No, you're doing hardcore labor, like almost like a construction crew.
Right.
Like equal to like construction crew labor. So you were hauling tree limbs. We'd cut down a tree one time, and we had to cut it up, and you're hauling it down to the end of a field, and like the field was like the length of like at least two football fields put together, and you're hauling it down there. You're connecting ropes to the tree, and you're pulling it over your shoulder. I think one time we were getting rocks out of something. We're getting rocks out of this pit or something, and we had like, it was sort of like a wheelbarrow, but you didn't you didn't push it from the front. You had a rope on the front, and you had two girls in the back. So you'd be like pulling it through this field, and you'd have girls pushing it, and you'd throw it on this pile. Like I said, black shirts, they had to shovel horse manure. So the pasture where you're shoveling horse manure was up here, and then you had to take your shovel and like shovel mounds of it. And I'm not talking about a small little pile. I mean like a pile that you could climb on top of and you could break your ankle jumping off of if you wanted to. That's how much horse manure it was. And then you had to run it all the way down to the field, come back up and do it again. So it was very exhausting work. It was
Why
hard.
all the way up the field? Do you think he was just doing that just to completely exhaust the girls and to make more work for them?
Yeah, that too. But what was at the end of the field was a thing called a compost pile, and it's where we put all the manure and it's where we put all the food that was to be thrown away. So that's the reason why we'd have to go down to the end of the field. But what I'm saying is, it wasn't a convenient place. It wasn't close by,
Right.
and another thing we had to do is we had to run everywhere we went. And this is a very large property. There's a property across the street, and then there's property there, and it's just very large. It was a ranch. So we normally weren't walking places because that was time consuming. So we'd have to run everywhere, and it was something else. It was a lot of exercise, I can tell you that.
The girls are really running the ranch. They're
Yeah.
running the whole show. They're supervising other girls. Really, these owners can sit back and watch TV all day if they want to, because the whole place is ran.
Yes, and then on top of that, they could sit back and watch TV, or sometimes they'd come out if they had the whim or if they felt like it. They'd come out of their AC office and they'd like talk to the supervisors and say, "Okay, I want this done next," and "Oh, you're done. Okay, do this now." And then
when you say supervisors, you're not talking about people they hired. You're talking about the girls.
yeah, there wasn't a lot of actual staff at Circle of Hope.
How many would you say staff on board that weren't children?
Okay.
That weren't part of their children being staff. I'm talking 18
Okay,
and over.
So 18 and over. It varied through the years. There was one, and of course the staff would come, not realizing that it was a cult. They'd get there, realize it was a cult, and they'd bail. They'd leave.
Oh,
like,
and they didn't think to report that. And I'm wondering, maybe they did, but nothing's being done.
They all reported it. I think one time we had one staff member, and she did the medicine, and she like took care of us, and she treated us kindly, and she, like I said, people would come in and they treat us like humans. We'd become attached to them because we were just we missed that. We missed being treated like a child, or like being treated kindly. And then she came and she left in tears for some reason. Again, a lot of things happened in the office.
Yeah, I wonder why. Probably because she's seeing all the child abuse going on.
You saw a lot of the child abuse, and then you just grow attached to this person because she's kind to you. And then we just like see her like walking out the door one day, and you're like, "Are you okay?" And she goes, "I'm so sorry." And then she like left.
Oh, and that was your one spark of hope, a decent human being in this place.
Mm-hmm. Another staff member that came, she worked for, I think she had previously worked for Agape. I have no idea if you've heard of that before, but
yes, I've heard of Agape. It's the boys' ranch.
She had worked there, and she came to work here at Circle of Hope, and we didn't get to talk. It's not like we could just walk up and talk to these people because we weren't supposed to speak at all. And what you did see, it was just them like conversing with again, mainly things just happen in the office and you can't hear anything. But
how did that make you feel as a human being? There's this kind person, she's giving love to other girls at this place, but you weren't allowed to really speak to her or any other girls at that point at times, or staff members. What did that do to your psyche?
Well, that's a very complicated answer. To other girls, I'm sure that it really destroyed them. Just to know that you're in this place and you can't speak and you can't express yourself in any sort of way. I'm pretty sure it destroyed a lot of them. But I personally am a very different case from other girls because I didn't know anything about God. I didn't know anything about Christianity. And I'd asked my mom if she was to send me to a boarding school, if she could send me to a Christian boarding school so I can learn more about God and I can learn more about the Bible. And so I got there, and what they tell us a lot is that if we loved God, we'd respect our authority. And that does say that in the Bible, that you need to respect your authority and you need to do what you're told. So when I got there and all this abuse was being put on me, I was like, okay, this is just God's will, because they'd used a lot of stuff from the Bible to back up what they were doing. So I was like, okay, so I don't know anything about God. This is how it's supposed to be. I need to be quiet. I'm supposed to do all these things. So I was very easy to manipulate, and I was very easy to brainwash because I didn't know anything about God.
Oh, no. And that's a difference, too, because if you're a Christian and you're going into one of these places, you have a whole different perspective because you know that this is wrong. And now you have no other perspective of what Christianity is supposed to be about. And then you're dumped into this other planet and you're thinking, oh, that's what Christianity is supposed to be.
Right.
And it's absolutely not. But you had no idea. And a lot of times that would just it could turn somebody off either way, whether they were a Christian or not a Christian.
It's very disgusting because if girls don't know about God and they come to this place, they're going to think, well, I don't want anything to do with God.
Sure.
I don't want anything to do with religion.
Because it's demonic. It's demonic. What
they're very religious, but they're lacking the God in the religion, the kind part of religion, and they're just with the rules and the strictness of the religion, but they're missing the love.
Absolutely. And then let's go over Agape. Agape is a home for boys. It's still open today, and that is located in Missouri. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you know any of the boy survivors?
No, I do not. I do not, but I've heard. Okay. I have heard a few things about Agape from when I was in Circle of Hope because, like I said, the staff member would come and she'd say some of the things that would happen at Agape. Just a few things that, like, what I heard was that when she was at Agape, what they do to boys that would first come in is they'd shave their head to show humbleness or something like that. But you can't just shave kids' head like at your own will. That's just not something you do, you know? Same thing with cutting the girl's hair. That was the punishment at Circle of Hope. A thing that the owners would say is that, oh, you think your hair is your God or something like that. Like, you know, because it's your hair. You have to take care of it. And if girls would, like, take too long brushing their hair, if they'd show, like, more care than they wanted to, they'd take it, they just cut your hair. Sometimes it would just be a punishment. So he'd purposely make them look like boys by cutting it really short and then like shaving it a little bit in the back.
Oh my God, that's awful. And it's almost like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So here they are saying you're too vain for that. And yet I would hear sermons, hey, you need to lose weight. Gluttony is a sin. And then they would attack girls that were overweight. And I know they did that in your school too. And they were practically starving girls that were overweight. Is that correct?
Yes. I would agree. What happened at food time? There was a certain time where we eat, you know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But it was like this separate time, you know. It wasn't just like, okay, let's go eat. It's just like we had to say Bible verses beforehand. We had to pray. We had to set everything up. We had to stand in front of our seats, and then we'd go through the line. What they do with girls who are overweight is they'd give them half a portion. So, like, let's say I get 2 scoops of mashed potatoes. People who are on half portions, they get 1 scoop. Or if it's 1 scoop of mashed potatoes for that night, they get half a scoop. Or if we're having spaghetti and I get 2 ladles, they get 1 ladle. Or if it's 1 ladle, they get half. So there's also a thing called, there's half portions and there's a thing called doubles. And doubles was given to a girl who they felt was too skinny. So if I get 2 scoops of mashed potatoes, she gets 4 scoops of mashed potatoes. And then if I have 2 scoops of spaghetti, she gets 4. So these girls would just have these mountains of food on their plates. And they try to explain to him, I can't eat all this food. This is too much. I'm going to puke or something like that. He's like, too bad. Got to eat it. Too bad.
That's awful. And what is their point? What's their justification? I'm going to cure anorexia by giving somebody 4 loads of food.
Right.
They'll never want to eat food, after doing something like that. I mean, it's the way they're going about it is the wrong way, which leads me to this. Did anybody have any kind of credentials for psychology, licensing,
They
someone who's anorexic or bulimic?
Gosh, they like to say they had a lot of credentials and that they were like doctors and like certified and all these things, but I went and looked it up, and like the only person who's certified is the wife, and she's a certified nurse, but that's it. They don't have credentials as far as I know in that sort of area.
A certified nurse, and yet there was a story on my YouTube. It was Chanel Murray, and she had mentioned that she witnessed girls that were known for runaways. They were in robes, and I'm curious if you saw any of this too. They were in robes. They were naked underneath. They were out in the freezing cold weather with shoes, no socks, not even snow boots. It was shoes, no socks on, and they had frostbite. They didn't call 911. There was no medical doctor to help them. And yet there's a so-called nurse on board who just let them be in agonizing pain. It was actually one student. The other one was freezing cold. Didn't escape frostbite, but the other one did. And then what they did was they continued to make that girl with the frostbite work, both of them, to work.
Oh yeah, you're not ever exempt from work. You could be on your cycle. It could be your birthday. It could be
deathbed.
It could be you could have a broken ankle. This girl broke an ankle one time. They just put her out there on crutches. Get outside.
Awful. And the thing is, that girl could have had her limbs amputated because of frostbite, and they continued to have her suffer like that and didn't do anything. They didn't treat her, and there was a nurse on board.
There's actually, I have because as you know, I have scars, right? I have scars on my legs too, and what the scars do is what my doctor told me is that it's keeping me from circulating. So when I'm on my feet for a few hours, I start to limp, and I'm not able to walk because it's not circulating how they're supposed to, and it's just excruciating pain when this happens. So for 2 years, I tried to explain to them that, hey, I can't walk, I'm limping, or I'm in pain, and they tell me to work anyway. So I'd be working outside, and I'm just in excruciating pain, and I can't speak. And if I say anything, no one's going to believe me. They wouldn't take me to a doctor. I asked to go to a doctor, and they said that I was just faking it. And again, at work crew, you have to run. So like what happens with my feet is that it literally feels like your ankle's broken. So just imagine like running on 2 broken ankles or something like that.
And let's just remind the audience, the scarring is from your biological mom abusing you, burning you. Is that what the scars are from?
I cannot confirm it, because when it happened, it was like I was 60 months old. But the story that I've been told is that it was an accident. But after my encounter with her, I have no idea if it's an accident anymore. I believe it was some sort of abuse, but I can't confirm it
for sure. You're suspecting. Okay. That's just so sad that they wouldn't take your word for it. And here you have supposedly a certified nurse on board. I can't help but go over that over and over again.
And I can't believe it. It is so. There were so many times where I'd be sitting there, and we'd have these meetings sometimes where owners would just sit there and they just like shame us. They'd slut shame us. They'd shame us for things that we did in the past. And you're there to grow, and you're there to learn from your mistakes, but they literally just go around the room and saying, oh, you did this, and you're such a terrible person, and all these things. And they'd get to me, and they're like, you're such a fake, you're limping, and you're not even hurt. I'd actually get punished sometimes because of the fact that I couldn't walk, or I couldn't stand up on my own, and I'd receive punishments for that sometimes.
And so there was like a ripple effect with all of this. So girls are emulating how the owners are treating the girls, regurgitating and they're encouraged to do it. So to me, those are the role models at this place, and there's repercussions if the girls don't do it. It's just disgusting. And then, can you tell me about the shaming? The shaming as far as making the girls feel that they were a Jezebel. Were they taking the scripture backing that up too?
Yes, they would. I can't tell you exactly what they said, but they would use what you said, like a Jezebel. They'd say things like, "Oh, you think you're a Ruth or you think you're an Esther, but you're all just Jezebels. You're ungodly women." Like, um, there were some girls that they believed were saved, and they'd keep them out of the picture. But those who they didn't feel were saved, they'd call them out and stuff like that. And that's not right. It's very unbiblical to assume someone's salvation and assume whether or not someone's saved, because that's not your right. The only one who can judge you is God in that matter, and God has the final say. But they'd
Right.
sit there and say, "Oh, you're such ungodly woman, and you're not." I think sort of what she was doing is she was like saying that we're not as good as her. The wife would say this stuff about us, and that I can't remember, but basically that we're just sluts and we're never going to get husbands or something like that. And this is again stuff
What
that's
kind of
happening.
programming is that? That's just, it's awful to program a child's mind. You're at an impressionable age.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, you were there at 16 years old?
yeah, 16 through 17 years old.
You were there for 2
Sorry,
years,
sorry, my bad. 15 through 17 years old.
15 through 17. That's a
Yes.
long time to be programmed like that. So just because you say it biblically doesn't make it right. It still means slut. When you call someone a Jezebel, you are still indicating someone is a slut. So it doesn't matter if it's biblical or not. It has the same meaning. So you're still feeling the same way.
Another thing they would say from the Bible is that they'd mention the fact that rebellious children were stoned in the past. They'd be killed. So they bring that up often. They say he actually went around the room one time when we were in one of his meetings, and he would say, "If you were like born back then, you would have been stoned. You would have been stoned. You would have been stoned. All y'all would have been killed." And I'm just like, "Gee, thanks." Thanks for that information. Like you're here and you're trying to get better, and you're just being told, "Oh yeah, you would have been stoned if you were born back then." You know what I mean?
Right. And it's people that have done this over the years. That's not of God. God's not stoning people to death. People chose to stone people to death. And Christianity is more, he's pulling from the Old Testament. He's not pulling from the New Testament.
Right. And Christianity, right here and right now, is generally based off the New Testament. Personally, how I feel, the New Testament is like nothing but love and forgiveness and like confessing your sins and like being right with God, and being forgiven because He loves
The
you.
whole point of Christianity is supposed to be about forgiveness.
Right. And then not only would they slut shame us, they'd slut shame. It wasn't. They would even do it biblically sometimes. There was just one time, I guess they read something in the newspaper that upset them. So of course their first reaction is to take it out on us. And I don't know, but she was like she was slut shaming us, and used very vulgar words. And she said, basically, what we're prone to do is to like spread our legs and then expect the government to support us. Now the problem with that, I didn't have a problem with her saying that because I expect her to say that. She's mentally abusive. But there are 9-year-olds in this facility, and 9-year-olds are a part of everything. And so you're saying this stuff, and there's 7-year-olds, there's 8-year-olds, there's 9-year-olds, and they say this stuff, not all the time, but it was pretty often. And they said, "Oh, I don't care if she hears it. She knows what sex is. She knows what it is by now, thanks to you." But like they had to censor.
You couldn't even speak in this place. So how the heck you couldn't even say anything on the radio, in the newspaper? You didn't have freedom of speech at all. So you were being watched constantly. There were eyes and ears everywhere. So how could you have been a bad influence on these children? And by the way, were these children part of the staff children? Were they placed into this program?
They were placed in the program, and they were just like they're in the program with us, and then they
Did they
threw out
sleep in the dorms?
right. So like I said about the work crew, they were out there with us working 8 hours a day.
Oh. And there's nothing wrong with work or volunteering your time for a church. Don't get me wrong. Okay, there's nothing like having good work ethics to teach your children.
Mm-hmm.
But these kids were not getting they weren't getting any money, and they were in child endangerment.
Mm-hmm.
They were putting them in positions that was very dangerous and extreme weather conditions because it gets cold in Missouri.
It also gets extremely hot in Missouri.
And extremely hot. So you have extreme weather conditions, and you were still made to work outside without the proper gear too. I heard that they weren't even wearing boots to shovel the manure with the horses.
I'm not sure about like the other times, but I know when I was there, they were wearing boots. The other thing about being a black shirt, this is why being a black shirt was so bad, because they'd find ways to torture you, sort of, but like legally. They torture you with a lot of the times they like to torture you with water, because again you're out in the hot Missouri heat, and so sometimes they make it so you only get half a cup of water, and it'll be like this much water, and then they just tell you to get back to work because you're a black shirt, and because they wanted to make you suffer in some sort of way. Another thing they did was they restricted you from certain medications or certain things that would keep you from being out of pain. So it would be 97, 96 degrees outside, no clouds or anything, and you weren't allowed to have sunscreen. And so you'd blister and you'd burn. But that was if you were a black shirt. Now the other shirt colors were allowed to have sunscreen, but specifically black shirts, they wanted them to suffer in any way, shape, or form.
It's awful to do that to a child. And let's remind the audience that if you're a black shirt, it could be a minor infraction, like forgetting a pencil, or maybe you couldn't eat all the food on your plate. Right. Or maybe saying something on the radio, a song that you liked out in the outside world.
Right.
Or talk about a friend. You could be on black shirt for that, correct?
Right. That's it was again, I said it was very strict. And then at a certain time for black shirts, they'd have to work longer than the other girls. So the girls would be done with work crew. All right, let's go take showers. And one night they just kept us outside just picking weeds with the mosquitoes until everyone else was done in their showers, and like, okay, now you can take a shower now that there's no warm water left for you. Another time
you were a black shirt before.
Yes, I was a black shirt before.
Oh.
Another time.
How long were you on black shirt for?
I was a black shirt for about 2 or 3 months. It was throughout the
time. That's a long time. And let's remind the audience that there's no school during this time. Mm-hmm. So you already are deprived of an education anyway, regardless what shirt you are. But when you're a black shirt, there's absolutely no education for 2 months.
Right, because in their eyes, education was a privilege, and it was something that should be earned, not just given to you. So that was another thing they said. Another thing they did to us after we worked a long, long day is for a certain amount of time, we were only allowed to take cold showers. And what it was is it was freezing cold water, and the only way for you to actually start showering was after your body became numb, and then you were able to shower. At least that's how I did it. I don't know how anyone else did it, but it was just straight cold water, and it was intentionally like that to make us suffer. Some girls would stand like against the wall because it was so cold, and it was just like this shock. It's like ice water, and if you didn't get under the water, a supervisor would dump ice water on top of you. So either way, you're getting wet, no matter how hard you try.
That's awful. Okay, I just want to go over this again. This is when you're on black shirt. Is it the whole time you're on black shirt, or once in a while you get the cold shower? How often is this?
To be honest, it was just everything that happened to a black shirt was up to the imagination. So it wasn't just like a schedule. It was just like, oh, today I want to make them suffer this way, or I want to make them suffer this way today. So
it was different types of torture,
right,
for the 2 months. I just wanted to make that clear, but that's awful. I heard of girls getting slammed and tackled into horse manure. Did you ever see that?
No, I did not see that.
Okay.
I think that was at a time before I came.
Okay, so they kind of cleaned up their act a little bit. Right. And this is cleaning up their act a little bit. This place is still open today. Let's remind the audience. It's disgusting. Just the medical neglect alone.
Mm-hmm.
let's just say nothing else, but just the medical neglect,
Mm-hmm.
this place should be closed down. It should have been closed down a long time ago. Can you talk to me about holding in urination? Did they do that to you in there?
Holding in urination? No, they did not. Now, speaking in general, you're allowed to go to the bathroom like every 2 hours. If you had to go to the bathroom like in between the hours, you generally had to hold it in,
Okay,
especially
that is not normal. That is not normal. You should, as a child in a facility like this, you should be allowed to go to the restroom, have a bowel movement, urinate whenever you want.
Yeah.
Whenever you want. When you are punished for going to the bathroom, whether it's push-ups, demerits, that is child abuse. So
That is
they're designating times for going to the bathroom. And aren't they making you drink an absurd amount of water at times too?
let's see here. That would, like I said, that would be just happen with like punishments. Like if you'd done something wrong that pertained to water in some sort of way, they'd make you drink like obscene amount of waters. Um,
And then still have that rule on a bathroom break every 2 hours.
so I've heard. I heard a really weird story that happened recently, like I think like a month or two ago, from this man named Joseph Askins, and he told me that he given these girls a workout, and a workout is like exercises for an extended amount of time, and it's basically like torturing you through your own body weight and your own exhaustion. And after this 2 hour workout, this girl was very thirsty, right? And so but they wouldn't let her get any water, and this was after a 2 hour workout, and they said she could not have any water, and they sent them all to bed. And
Oh,
the supervisor felt sorry for her, and the supervisor is supposed to like enforce the way that the householders did, but she wasn't. She decided that she didn't want to follow the rules the way the owners wanted to, so she snuck her water. And the next day, the supervisor got punished and demoted, and the girl who would drink in the water from the supervisor, she was made to drink like the large McDonald cups that you get, like a
right.
large drink. She was made to drink 4 of those.
Oh, that's so sad. And then also hold in her urination because of the every 2 hour.
Right. And then she said that I think around her third cup, the girl said she couldn't drink anymore. So we have a track outside, and the track is like, I think it's like half, maybe like a quarter mile long. And he made her run around that twice, come back up the hill. There's a hill after the track. Drink the cup of water, and then go out and run again. Come back up, do 50 push-ups, and I think about like her 25th push-up, she vomited all over the place.
Oh. Did you ever see any girls urinating on themselves because they couldn't hold it in any longer?
Yes, I did.
You did.
I think I was actually like a victim of that one time. It wasn't urination though. It was like a really bad bowel movement because, like I said, with the black shirts, they had to eat these really nasty food like the bologna and like the hard rice, and it wasn't just nasty. Sometimes it was a large amount of it, and you had to basically scarf it down because you had a time limit that you had to eat it, and just so much. It was just so much bologna, and it would just literally tear up my intestinal tract because it was just such a lot of food that we're eating. And I told my supervisor, ma'am, I need to go to the bathroom like really badly. And she said, no, you're going to wait your 2 hours. I said, ma'am, I have to go like right now.
Designated times. They're telling you cannot go to the bathroom. That's awful.
And so basically this is really embarrassing, a very embarrassing story, but I basically like begged her to let me go to the bathroom, and she said, no, you can wait 2 hours. And I ended up going on myself, and I had to take a shower, and it was the most humiliating time of my life because I was restricted from basically a human right.
Right. A human bodily function.
Right.
Girls and boys should not be deprived of a normal human bodily function. And you're embarrassed. It was their fault. They put you in that situation. It's awful that you would even have to have an embarrassment or feeling shameful. It's not on you, it's on them. And that is just so sad that they did that to you. And I thank you so much for sharing that, because I want people to know, hey, this is going on today.
Mhm.
in this school.
Yeah.
How was the educational program in here? Were you able to transfer any of the
Mm,
credits into another school?
no, but to be honest, I didn't really try to because I didn't want anything to do with that boarding school. But the education system itself, it was if you don't expect to graduate anytime soon. I think the only people who graduated there were people who had sat there for 5 years, literally in the program for 5 years, and then they were able to graduate. But like if you stayed there 2 years, you had a very, very, very low risk of graduating. Um,
Probably because you weren't able to transfer any of it. But if you were there the whole time,
the way
then you could graduate according to their program.
the way it
Is that
worked.
even valid?
Do you know how? Are you aware of how it worked when you got there? How the school system worked?
We were on the paces.
Yeah. The way it worked is that, okay, let's say you're a sophomore. I was a sophomore when I got to Circle of Hope, and they put you on a computer and you do science and you answer these string of questions and you do question, question, question. And you're supposed to answer the questions until you're like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing anymore, and these questions are too complicated. Then you go into math, English, and then all the other subjects. And based off what you got on that test, it determines what grade you're in that subject. So science, I got fifth grade science. In math, I got like second grade math. Then you have to work through that grade level in order to like get to like the 12th grade. So here I am, a sophomore, and I've been given fifth grade math work, and I have to go through fifth grade again, I guess.
That's exactly what happened to me. And I was thankful for that because we were being abused so bad. Couldn't even focus. I could not focus. I was used to memorizing The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe and reciting in front of my class. And here I am doing fifth grade work. But who could focus?
Right. To me, school was kind of more of an escape. So once I got into school, I could focus, mainly because the way it worked in school is that you're not allowed to speak during school and you're not allowed to receive punishments from supervisors. So if you're a supervisor, everyone becomes equal in the schoolroom when it's school hours. So you do something wrong, it doesn't matter. It's school time. So, oh
And
well.
this escape only lasted, what, 3 hours?
2 hours. Yeah.
2 hours.
So it would be, sorry, 2 hours, lunchtime, and then another 2 hours, and then you're back out on work crew.
Back out on work crew.
Hmm.
So you were slaves for most of the time there.
Right. And then when I say escape, I kind of take that back because school was extremely strict. The way that they had the paces, the way that you do the paces, it's very easy, but the way they enforce the paces were really, really crazy. And you can make like the slightest mistake, or if you miss a question like a certain amount of times, you're like in trouble. And like if you ever messed around in your schoolwork, or if you ever like didn't do it the way they wanted you to do it, you were just in trouble. And like the worst kind of trouble. Like you could be demoted and you could like be out on work crew shoveling horse manure because of the way you were doing your schoolwork. And I
Wow.
think for some girls that was the primary reason for why they got demoted, was because of their schoolwork. And it's paces, their easiest thing to do, but the way that how strict they made it was basically impossible to do without being in trouble for something.
Right. So, in other words, if you asked a question and in a normal school setting, teachers encourage questions, no matter what kind of question it is. They're just happy someone's participating, right? Not in the places we were at. If you ask the wrong question, you can get punished for it.
Right. Or if you didn't, there's like boxes and like, the score boxes and like, the way you score. I think one of the rules was, I'm trying to think of like a very ridiculous rule that they enforced. Okay, so one time, there's the score tables, right, when everyone's scoring, and I guess they had accidentally answered the flags, and like all the score tables got filled, and so I had my score key, right, and I was going to the table to fill out, like my answers and my questions and whatnot, just like scoring like a regular person, and they were all full, so I went to put the score key back, but I stood there because it looked like a girl was about to finish, so I stood there and unfortunately, well, I didn't realize this. I was out of the vision of the supervisor, and so I waited, and the girl left, and I scored my test key. Now the girl was a purple shirt, and she didn't say a word to me, but instead she just went straight. And she's just like, she cheated. She cheated. She
Oh,
went behind the bookcase and she read her score key and she filled in the answers and all this other crap. But that's like an example of how strict they were because I think I think a verse they used all the time was abstain from all appearances of evil. So like if they think or they suspect you're doing something wrong, you're wrong. You're getting demoted. You're out there shoveling horse poop. It is so freaking ridiculous.
it is ridiculous. You're just guilty by association or by something that you didn't even a crime for you didn't even commit.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like we were treated like criminals
Right.
all the time.
I mean, I'm not saying like all the girls there were innocent and they didn't deserve to be sent to boarding school, but some girls were trying to recover and they were trying to better themselves, but it's kind of impossible to do that there unless you're conformed to these really weird ways or things that don't make sense.
And a lot of the girls that were sent there, and I want to say boys too, they came from maybe a broken home or there was something going on in their family, maybe sexual abuse, and they didn't. I would say 95% of the kids that are sent to this place don't even have a criminal record. There isn't even a misdemeanor on their record, and yet they're locked up in these camps.
And to be honest, they're treated worse than prisoners are
They
treated.
are.
And they have to work a lot harder than prisoners are treated.
Exactly. I feel the same way. I mean, I haven't been to prison, but I feel like there are human rights that you have. You can make a phone call. You can have an attorney. You can write letters. Were your letters scrutinized and phone calls as well? How was the communication there?
Um, I was very robotic because everything was monitored. You'd write your letter and it would go to your red shirt and your red shirt would give it to, and you'd sit there and read it, check for like secret messages to your parents. Like, you basically, if you had to tell the truth in your letters, and telling the truth is basically what they believe is the truth. So if let's say you had behavioral issues that week, you got to write home once a week, and if you did something wrong, and if you didn't say it in your letter like, "Mom, I was a bad kid, I did this," or something like that, if you didn't make yourself out to be like this horrible person that they felt you were being that week, he'd just be like, "Yeah, rewrite it." Or I think, for example, one time I'd written a letter and I didn't talk about anything that I did that week. I just I wrote the whole letter talking about this car accident that we witnessed on the way back from church. And I didn't say anything about my behavior or anything like that. I just wanted to talk about that thing because it was just so fascinating to watch. And he read it, and one of the purple shirts was like, she didn't write anything about her behavior. She didn't say anything about what she did this week. She just wrote about this car accident she witnessed. So he crumbled it up in front of me and he said, rewrite it.
I think the reason why they're doing that is to cover their butts. So it justifies how they treat you in this place.
Right. I think another time, I was punished because I fainted. I fainted because
Punished for fainting. Unbelievable. This I have to hear.
in their eyes, I was faking it. And this wouldn't just happen to me, it would happen to other girls. Some girls would faint, and they're like, oh, she's such a fake, and she's just trying to get attention and whatnot. So I fainted one time, and it
was from overexhaustion and dehydration.
Well, yeah, it was early in the morning. I hadn't eaten breakfast yet. I hadn't drank anything yet. But I had to go with a red shirt and another supervisor to a brick house across the street because we had to pull food from there. That's where we got our frozen foods. And we were running back and forth. And I think it was about a few degrees over 20 degrees Fahrenheit. It was cold. And we were running back and forth. And when I got back, I just felt dizzy. I felt like extremely thirsty. And I didn't know what was wrong with me because I'd never passed out before in my life. And so I just thought that I was sick and that I needed to vomit or something like that. But they said, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? And I was like, can I sit down? And the supervisors did let me sit down. And then I was like, what's wrong with her? And they're like, I think she has to throw up. And he's like, well, take her upstairs then. Don't let her throw up in the dining room. And so I'm walking over there and I just completely black out. And the
Oh,
next thing I remember is just they were going into prayer time where they pray over the food, and he's just like, Lord, please bless this fake who's on the floor. Just let her know that she her games won't work there or something like that. And I
oh
was just
my God, that's awful.
and then I think I got up and he said, you can go to your seat now. And so I got up and I started walking to my seat and I blacked out again. And like, I'm like coming in and out and like I just remember like people like around me, they had my arms and my legs and they were like carrying me outside and they set me out on the gravel. And again, it's like 22, 25 degrees outside. And he just like,
No jacket, no
no,
gear.
no, nothing. And he just like completely sprays me down with a hose and like sprays.
What?
Yeah. And then and
Oh,
then like,
hold it. A cold water hose out in 20-degree weather?
yep.
Oh,
And so after he like completely drenches me in water,
you're lucky you didn't get frostbite from that.
yeah. But anyways, after they completely drenched me in water, they locked me outside the dorm and I was like, hey, can I come in? And they're like, no, we don't let fakes inside here. You can just sit out there in the cold. And so I think I was out there for like 30 minutes and I'm just like crying because I'm freezing, I'm wet.
And
And
I'm sorry, you said outside the dorm. Are you outside after he hosed you down, still outside?
yep, outside.
Oh my
Um,
God.
I think after like about 30 minutes, they let me inside and I had to like stand on the wall as a punishment for fainting.
I
But
want you to explain what the wall is in just a second, but anything could have went wrong. They could
yeah,
have had a murder on their hands. You could have been frostbite. It comes to mind here. I mean, 20 degrees and ice cold water.
yeah.
Oh my God, torture! It's just beyond torture.
And then so anyways, back to the letters. So I'd written a letter to my mother and I was explaining, well, let's actually start with the phone call because you asked about phone calls. So phone calls, as you know, are monitored. And the owner told the purple shirt, when she has her phone call and when you monitor it, you need to make sure that she tells the truth. And when I say truth, again, I mean what they think is the truth. So in their mind, I just fake the whole thing.
Lies, really
So
lies. But go ahead.
so what basically I had to get on the phone with my mother and I had to I started telling her the truth and that I just fainted, but like the purple shirt said you better tell the truth and she like held her hand over the hang up button so I would know that she would hang up if I didn't tell the truth. And so I was like, well, crap, I don't get to talk to my parents every 2 weeks and I kind of miss my mom. So, hey, mom, I fainted. I faked the whole thing. So, and she just kind of laughed at me. She wasn't upset or anything. She's like, "That's a dumb thing to do." I was like, "I know, I'm stupid. I'm so dumb." um,
Oh no!
so and then the letter I wrote home
I
to
you
her.
know what I would have done, but I have a different kind of relationship with my parents.
Well,
I would hung up. I wouldn't have done it,
yeah.
and just
Um,
to get under their skin a little bit. But that's just me. But go on. That's awful
yeah.
that you had to do that.
They'd actually talked to my mother before they allowed the phone call, so she already knew what I was gonna say or what I was about to be forced to say. So like either way, it's gonna be like told.
A
Yeah.
different way.
And so, anyways, back to the letters. I wrote my mom a letter, and it was basically me trying to explain to her that I fainted and that it wasn't my fault, and that they'd forced me to say that I had fainted. And then I turned it in, and he like called me up to like stand in front of him at church, and he said that I had faked the whole thing, and if I wanted to be convincing next time, try this acting technique or something like that. And then he crumbled up my letter, and I had to rewrite it.
But at that point, you pretty much knew you didn't have a shot because you knew they censored your mail. You
Yeah,
already
but
knew that, but you were just trying.
yeah, I was just trying.
You were
I
just
think I was
trying.
trying to convince them more than I was trying to convince my mom.
Got
Because
it.
I wrote the letters, and like maybe if I explained what happened, they'd believe me because I had the symptoms of fainting and whatnot.
But they didn't, and that's
Yeah,
all. Do you want to talk about the wall? So the communication is just kaput. There is no communication. You.
right.
What was the first time you saw your parents?
Um, after boarding school, I saw them, and that was 2 years later.
You didn't see your parents for 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, parents were allowed to come and visit, but that was strictly based off and their viewpoint of view. And again, you have to conform to them and you have to act like them in order to get a visit. So every 6 months, your parents were allowed to visit, but my parents never came and visited.
Oh, but not because they didn't want to. So based on the owners of this school, they deemed you a bad child, and so you were deprived visits from your parents.
I think, okay, I kind of want to say that. I think it was like throughout the years, it was like a mixture of both elements. But I primarily what it was is my mom lived in Florida and I was in Missouri, and she ran a medical foster care business. So if she wanted to come see me, she would have to pack up everything, the children and everything, to come see me. So it just wasn't a possibility for her.
So it's
But
a mixture of them depriving you and a mixture of she wasn't able to.
And I'm sure there are times where she was available and she could have done it, but then that other element would take in that she's just being bad, or other
Right.
all these other things, and it would be very depressing because you'd whenever there's a visit, certain people would hear about it, or like except for the girl who was getting the visit, it was a rule that the girl who was getting the visit was not to know about it, and it was supposed to be a surprise or something like that. There's a parent coming, someone's getting a visit, and I'd always get really excited. I was like, I think it's my mom this time. I think she's gonna come, and it would never happen.
That's so sad, and I can really identify with that because of the visits. And with us, it was the first 3 months, and then it was once a month. But for 2 years of not seeing your parents, and you would think whether you're bad in their eyes or not, if you're trying to repair families, regardless if your kid is not following the rules in this place or not, you should never deprive them to see their loved ones. You should never deprive them of that at all.
It was very strange. What it was is they wouldn't, not only would they slut shame us, they would just shame us as daughters of families, because most of us were adopted, and he'd stand there and be like, well, they adopted you, they gave you their name, they gave you all these other things, and you just spat in their face, and you're a terrible child. Christmas would come around, and I think the black shirts, he would encourage their parents not to give them presents that year, or not to send them gifts that year, because they're just rebellious and all these other things. And he'd say things like, well, if I adopted a child and she was rebellious, I wouldn't give her anything, and why would I want to visit why would I want to visit a daughter that didn't obey me? And like, why would I want to pay for a plane ticket to see a child that doesn't deserve it, or something like that?
That's awful. Did he ever say your parents are paying so much money just to keep you away from us?
I think he did say that at one time. A lot of times he would brag about like how low of a price Circle of Hope was compared to other facilities, and that sometimes with the money, he would mention that some parents wouldn't pay, and that some parents were like in debt to him. And in my opinion, I think that he would take out his anger on the children, whose parents wouldn't pay sometimes.
Oh my God, that's awful.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
I understand that the room of isolation was there at a later time. Well, you were there 4 years ago. So was there a room of isolation?
Yes, it was a thing called the quiet room. According to him, he had to back up everything legally, even though he was talking to a bunch of teenagers for some reason. But he said that the room of isolation, he'd gotten it approved by like a social worker or a cop or something like that.
What kind of social worker would approve that?
Well, the thing is, sometimes they would take things out of proportion. So they take something that CPS said or a social worker said, and they'd like twist it around, and they'd make it like kind of their own thing. They just, you give them an inch and they take
making lies. They were saying lies.
Right.
You think that it was approved by social services.
But what he had said was that social services had told him that whenever a girl is like acting up, or she's throwing a temper tantrum, or she's showing that she's a danger to someone else, put her in a room where she's like by herself, so she can't hurt anyone, or she can't hurt herself.
And so she's safe.
Yeah, so she's safe.
She's in a safe place. Oh my God. I can't imagine what they would say.
And what the quiet room was, it was essentially, it was an unfinished bedroom, and it was in the upstairs living room. So you had the couch and you had the windows, and then you had the door to the quiet room, and then you had the hall that went this way, and it was all the other regular rooms. The quiet room, the walls were made of wood because it was kind of, like I said, it was unfinished. It didn't have a light bulb or any sort of light fixture in it, so you'd be in there in the dark, and it was just carpet, and there was nothing in there. I wasn't When I was there, there weren't a lot of people that were put in the quiet room as a punishment. There was only like 2 times that I can remember that a girl was put in the quiet room. The quiet room actually shifted between times because it turned into a quiet room, and it turned into a place called a sick room, and it's where we put the sick girls whenever someone would become ill. Whenever you were ill, you were allowed to stay inside instead of going out and work crew to recover. And they put a bed in there, and but the thing is, they'd lock the girl in there. So you'd be there in the dark. You can't see anything. So the reason they did that was because you were not allowed to be out of the supervision of someone. If everyone's out on work crew, no one can watch you. So you have to be locked inside this room while everyone's outside doing stuff. So some girls would be there they'd be in there for hours.
Was there a bathroom inside this place or no?
No.
No. So what happened if they have to urinate or a bowel movement?
Well, we checked on her every 2 hours. So
what someone did in between, because
there was one girl who was sick. She was in there, and they forgot about her. And we were downstairs, and we just hear this banging, this like I forgot what it was, but it's like stomping and banging. And we got upstairs, and she was like screaming and crying. She's like, "I have to go to the bathroom. I've been calling for 3 hours."
Oh,
and we took her to the bathroom. It was also very cold in that room. So
cold in that room. So you have sick girls in this room,
I don't know.
and it's freezing in there.
Right. But that's what happened in the sick room. It was just a place to make sure that girls weren't running away, but are still getting the sleep they need. But I just don't feel good about the fact that they had to be locked in there from the outside.
Right.
It was just a weird system. And then after it transformed into the quiet room, it became it became a bedroom for this girl named Rachel Kelso. I don't know if you know that name. But the bed, they put a bed in there, and somehow they installed a light in there, and they made it her own personal bedroom. Rachel there was nothing that could make her not smile. She was just all smiley. She was happy with it. She loved it. She's like, "Oh, I'm going to my own bedroom." And it wasn't like a really good bedroom, but she was just so thrilled with it. It was
better than what she had experienced before, I'm sure. And yes, I have heard of her. She was adopted, and then the owners of the school took her in.
Right.
School, and she's being abused in this place, or was. I think she's out now.
Yeah, I think she's out.
Her adopted family.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think she's out of the clear yet, but we can talk about that later if you want. As far as I know, her adopted family abused her, and then she went from that abuse to the owners of the Circle of Hope Girls Ranch to be abused there, and now she's back with abusers. So is she really saved? I don't think so.
I have no idea. I just hope she's all right, because she was such a ray of sunshine. She wasn't, gosh, how do I say this politely? She wasn't normal. She didn't have like the same mental capacity as a lot of other kids, which is why she was unfit to live by herself. But she was just so happy, and she was so kind. She was so cheerful, like all the time. Like even this abusive home, even in like everything else that was happening to her, she was always happy. And I think I like Rachel the most because of the fact that she was happy no matter what. Like kind of like a role model, you know?
Right. No matter what circumstance that she's thrown into, she is a survivor, and she is joyful. She's joyful in the middle of a storm. She's an angel. You knew her for 2 years. Were you able to talk to her? Because I know that you couldn't talk a lot in this.
Once you get to a supervisor position, like the pink shirt supervisors and above, you're allowed to talk. You're allowed to like give instructions to other people. You're not allowed to like shoot the breeze and like have a conversation, like enjoy yourself in that sort of manner. But you're allowed to like give instructions to them and like kind of like talk to them in a way, but I was able to talk to her as a supervisor, like to tell her like stuff to do in the kitchen. She was always happy to obey. She never argued with me.
Any sleep deprivation?
Sleep deprivation. Yes. Let's see here. It actually depends on like the punishment that you're getting. In general, sleep was very rare. Like let's say like a nap or something, or like going to bed early. That was just like something that like never happened. I think I can count like 5 times out of the 2 years that I've been there, like that we actually got to like take a nap or like sleep in. Um, but other than that, it was like I can't remember what the bedtime was, but it was I think a little bit after 9 o'clock, and then you were to wake up at 6:30 every morning. Now, if you were a higher shirt, you had to wake up 30 minutes before the girls. So girls wake up at 6:30. You wake up at 6 o'clock if you're a higher shirt. Now, on church days, the girls had to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning. So as a higher shirt, you had to be up at 5:30 in the morning since you're supposed to be up earlier than them.
Was there an alarm system that if you got off your bunk bed, it would go off? Anything like that?
Not that if you got off your bunk bed, but if you entered the hallways, to like, because there was a door upstairs, and that was an exit door, and you could escape that way. So if you entered the hallways, the alarm would go off, and it would alert everyone that they need that person needs to be tackled. Essentially,
What would happen if you have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night? What happens?
there were bathrooms. There were bathrooms in the bedrooms, except for the quiet room. So on each side, there's bedrooms, and then there's a bathroom in the middle of the bedroom. So,
Okay, so you were allowed to you didn't have to ask permission
um,
to get
when
off
you
your
got
bed.
when you got out, what happened if you had to go to the bathroom is you'd get out of bed and you'd wake up your supervisor and you'd say, "Hey, I need to go to the bathroom," and they'd give you toilet paper.
Okay, but without waking them up, you don't have any toilet paper. Were you deprived of toilet paper? Did you only get 4 squares of toilet paper? How did that work?
Yes, you were only given 4 squares of toilet paper initially. Now, if you were on the toilet and you needed more, you could ask for more toilet paper. But
Were you reprimanded for asking for more? Did you have a punishment?
not when I was there. Honestly,
Not when you were there.
they
Okay,
were really all about hygiene when I was there. So if you
that's
needed,
a plus for them.
they're all about hygiene, but you'd have to wear your dirty work clothes often. But like, I don't know, it was weird.
They were still abusing you. Just because they gave you more than 4 squares of toilet paper here doesn't get them off the hook. There's countless criminal acts that have been made here in this lockdown camp, and it still continue today.
The thing about going to the bathroom is at nighttime is that you aren't allowed to just wake up, get your own toilet paper, and go to the bathroom. You had to wake up your supervisor, wait for her to like recollect herself, and then give you toilet paper. And then there was one time what the supervisors don't like is if the same girl goes to the bathroom multiple times in the night. Now me, I have a very small bladder, so I'd go like twice in the night, and that would make them upset. And to the point where I was only allowed to be given this much water at dinner time, so I would go less at the night. And in the
They're
night,
dehydrating you.
yeah, basically. And then I wasn't allowed to drink water out of the sink because they didn't want me going to the bathroom because they were tired of me waking them up, essentially. There was one time I'd already gone to the bathroom twice in the night, and I knew this one supervisor wasn't going to let me go again until he woke up, and that wasn't for another few hours. But I really had to go. Like I was about to like pee myself, basically.
Oh,
What I did was I snuck toilet paper and I went to the bathroom, and I got in so much trouble for that. Because I went to the bathroom.
They set it up for you to sneak it in because she was so upset with you.
Yeah, and so I was basically about to pee myself, and I really didn't feel like arguing with her. I just had to go to the bathroom like right then and right there. So I snuck in the bathroom. I went to the bathroom, and I think one of the supervisors saw me or caught me. It wasn't my supervisor; it was the other supervisor. But she like caught me, and she woke up my supervisor. She said, "Hey, your girl just went to the bathroom without your permission." And she woke up and she said that I was going to be in like a ton of trouble whenever the owner got there, and I
Like
was
it's
just
such a criminal act. Oh my God. Just craziness. Go ahead.
and that this is when I was new there, and she was just like, I explained to her, ma'am, I had to go to the bathroom, and I had to go really badly, and she said, shut your big fat mouth, and I was just like, F you, and I got even more trouble.
Wow.
I didn't
But
censor
really, these places, if you have the bathrooms already there, okay, they're not going to run away. Put toilet paper in there. Allow kids to go to the bathroom. It's a human function. You shouldn't even have to ask a supervisor, which is a student, to go to the bathroom. That's ridiculous. And now the students are getting mad about getting interrupted with their sleep. It shouldn't even be to that point. It should be a normal situation where you go to the bathroom, and it shouldn't be this big fiasco.
Mm-hmm.
And they're making it that way.
Yeah,
the owners are making it this way. Now, a nurse should know if you hold in your urine, you're going to have urinary tract infection. That's who we have running the school there. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous. Did you have urinary tract infections?
No, I did not.
Because of it? I was just curious. Okay. Unbelievable. It shouldn't have even been a thought process. Toilet paper inside the bathroom. Allow children to use the restroom. It's a no-brainer. But we're not dealing with a full deck running this school here.
Right.
Okay. Do you want to talk about the tackling? Can you explain to the audience in detail of what is it like being tackled in this lockdown?
Being tackled, so the only time you'd be tackled is if you're suspected of running away. Now there were some girls who did try to run away. I was one of them. It was I think it was my first night there. I tried to run away. And what happens when someone's running away is someone's supposed to yell runner, and runner it essentially means attack. It doesn't mean ease them to the ground, help them to the ground, and just set them there and let them relax. It means like a quarterback. You see a quarterback, but you're not wearing armor and you're in pain. So it's just it can be 6 girls tackling you. It could be 1 girl tackling you, but they slam you to the ground, and they're supposed to pin you there, and they're supposed to sit on top of you until one of the owners comes. And usually what happens after someone runs away is a thing called a restraint. I know you've heard that term before, but I can explain it again if you need me to.
Would you say it's very similar to Cornelius?
Yes. Thing where you have to
go ahead.
You have to force them to the ground and push on their pressure points, face down. Yeah, that thing.
That's awful. It's awful that they're allowing this to happen. And Cornelius was murdered. Mm-hmm. And it continues to go on today at the Circle of Hope Girls Ranch located in Missouri. How did you end up out of this place? It was just your 2 years were up, and parents took you out. What happened?
What was actually supposed to happen is I was supposed to be dropped off at a homeless shelter because the owners, I guess they had been telling my mom for a while that I was still bad and I still wasn't behaving, and I was behaving. I was behaving very well, but one of the things they do is when a girl turns 18 or they turn a certain age is they try to make them staff there permanently. So I think what they were doing was they're trying to sabotage my relationship with my parents, and they tell my parents lies, basically. I think one time I had made, on one of my school tests, another ridiculous thing about school, I made an 80% on my test. I made an 80%. Well, in PACES, that's failing because you're supposed to make a 90 or above in the final test. So instead of telling her that I got an 80%, they said, oh, she failed her test. She failed it all. She got an F. And So
they're being deceitful, which is a big no-no in Christianity. And here they are being deceitful. You're not telling all the truth. You're not saying 80%. But go on.
They said she failed, and she's doing this because she thinks she's going to go home, and she thinks she doesn't have to obey the rules anymore. And so I don't know what they said, but one day I got on the phone with my mom. She's like, if you think behaving like this is going to get you home, I want to tell you now, you're not coming home. I'll come to Missouri. I'll I'll give you a Missouri ID and you will never see home again. And you can just live on the street
Oh,
for like here. Again, I have no idea what had prompted her to say this. I just got on the phone after behaving for like a week, like not even a week, like years after behaving for years. And all of a sudden she, well, if you think you're going to come home and all this other things, like, what did I do? And I really don't know what they told my mom to make her act like that, but it was probably some sort of lie or something like that.
and that's awful. They're really tearing families apart. So here your mom thinks you're so horrible that now you're going to be dropped off at a homeless shelter?
And that would happen to girls sometimes. If girls turned 18 in the establishment, they were sometimes dropped off at the homeless shelter because, in their words, they do not hold an orphanage and they do not hold a homeless shelter. And when you turn 18, you're no longer their responsibility because you're an adult. And so there were girls there. Their parents never came back for them. They left them there,
Oh.
and they never came back. There were a few girls that went to the homeless shelter and just basically had to fend for themselves. They're in good positions now. Some of them went to military. Some of them have families, but
Wow.
their parents just like left them there and never came back for
And
them.
no stepping stone. And you need your parents as a stepping stone to get to the next level.
Right. I think just to to show up there. Some girls never even got a visit like I did. So they were there for 3 or 4 years, never got a visit, and then never got to see their families again. And um, so
Would you
what I
would you
think
say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
sorry, I think around this time was it what near the end of my term was getting very bad because I was 17 at that time and my birthday was coming around the corner. My end date, the day my contract ended was April and my birthday was coming in July and my mom's saying stuff like she's not taking me home or anything like that. So they would start telling me about the homeless shelter and like how like as soon as I turn 18, they're gonna drop me off at the homeless shelter. And like after I failed my test, got an 80% on it. They put me on the wall, and they. I remember we were getting food one time, and they gave everyone their food, and I was supposed to eat my food on the wall, like standing up because I wasn't allowed to sit down. And they said maybe we should throw her food in the trash so she can learn how to dig food out of the trash when she's homeless.
That's
And
so sad. I'm sorry, the owner said that? Or who
yeah,
said that?
the owners.
The owners.
Yeah. So that to me, when I was 17, that was my fate. I didn't expect that I was going home. I like the only thing that I
You were
expected
thinking
was
that homeless shelter the whole time.
yeah. So it was a very depressing time. I prayed a lot during that time. I cried a lot during that time
Oh,
because my birthday was coming closer and closer, and I didn't have a home to go to, and I didn't know what I was going to do. But around this time, social services started getting really involved because there was allegations of rape coming up. There's allegations of abuse coming up, and some girls were speaking out, but it just wasn't this big of a movement as it is now. So turns out that a girl there that went there to the boarding school with me, but I never got to talk to her much because I don't know because because as a lower shirt you're not allowed to talk to other people
I
and you're
get
not allowed to make friends at the boarding school, so you weren't allowed to have friends.
exactly.
But apparently her mother was friends with my mother. And so we had a connection. We sat there for 2 years, not knowing that we'd actually met each other when we were little. And these were like, and it was such a bizarre coincidence because you got girls from Michigan and all these other states and like people
Sure.
from overseas. And like for some reason, we had just ended up together. And so I think she went home and she told her mother that all these things are happening and this girl needs to get out because I guess she knew me and
Oh,
but I didn't know her and she's like you gotta get this girl out and she's they're doing all these other things, they're raping girls. And so her mother told my mother, and then I guess my mom was just like, okay, I need to get her out of the situation because she didn't know any of this stuff was happening until her mother told my mother. Yeah, so my mom was just like, we have to get her out of there. Now, I didn't know any of this stuff was happening. I was just sitting there in like April thinking that my contract is ending and I'm just going to be stuck here for like I have no idea until when. And so I was a supervisor then. I was a red shirt. That was the highest I ever went. That's like second to a purple shirt. I went pretty high. Gosh, we were upstairs, and because social services were coming around, we'd go to the meetings. say that social services comes to like rip apart like the facilities that we're at. Some facilities would have like people come and like forcefully shake the children. And he said, well, if you respect us, you'll like fight and you'll like stay with us and like you tell these people that we're good people and that we're not doing anything wrong. Just a lot of brainwashing and telling us, well, you need to resist these people trying to come and take you.
He
and,
was
like,
prepping. He was prepping everyone.
yeah. And he was just like, you need, if they come and try to take you away, you need to fight and resist and tell them that you're fine or something like that. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, I was extremely brainwashed then. And so I think that day they went to do something. They had been going to court a lot. They had been going to a lot of police officers, but it was under the rug, so we didn't know about it. We didn't know where they were going, but they were getting in a lot of trouble then. They were gone one day, and it was just us girls, the supervisors, and we were told to clean upstairs. And the purple shirt knew about what was happening, and she said, if anyone comes to the door, you need to come find me, and you need to hide everyone in the rooms, and you need to like close the blinds to make sure everyone's away from the windows. And I was like, okay. And so I was upstairs supervising everyone, and like what Brother House told us is that if social services came and they did take us, we wouldn't go home. We'd go to foster care homes, and we'd never see your family again. So in our heads, social services coming was a bad thing because we didn't want to.
He was threatening everybody.
And I was upstairs and I heard this knock on the door. I'm just like, who's that? And so of course my command was to tell the purple shirt if someone came. And I went and found her. I was like, there's someone at the door. She's like, make sure everyone's in their rooms. Make sure that no one can be seen or anything like that. I was like, okay, everyone get in their rooms. And it was a police officer at the door. And he's like, I need Dajah. I was like, huh? And he was like, yeah, I need Dajah.
Wow.
And I started crying because I thought I was going to a foster home because I was like, oh no, social services came for me. I'm going to go to a foster home.
Wow.
And he asked for me, and he asked the girl who I guess I knew when I was a kid, but I just don't remember her. And he asked for me, and the purple shirt came upstairs. She just threw suitcases at us, and she said, pack your stuff up. I was like, oh no, we're going to foster care. And then I started packing my stuff up, and I didn't get to say goodbye to anyone. We just like headed downstairs, and I saw these social workers outside. They didn't say anything to us. They were just talking to each other. And they made us put our luggage in the back of their car. And we got in the police car, and he goes, you're going home. I was like, huh? He's like, you're going home. I was like, right now? He's like, yeah, you're going home. I was like, he said, my parents are like at the police station. I was like, wait, really?
Wow, that's awesome. And it's all because another survivor who wasn't as brainwashed, I guess, when she got out, spilled it to her parents.
Yeah.
And that's how you got out early.
Yeah. It was really crazy. It was also like really emotional.
That's another report right there. That's another report. The police actually came to pick you up due to child abuse.
Yeah.
That's another report.
It's
still open.
Yeah. So I think we got to the police station, and my mom was there, and I hadn't seen her in 2 years, and like she looked extremely different because like it's a 2-year gap of not seeing someone. So like her hair was all gray, but I was happy to see her. I was happy to see everyone. We went to the police station, and again, I was very brainwashed. And the way they trained us was like basically to tell the truth, and the truth was what they thought was the truth. And so I'd be like, oh, yeah.
You mean lies?
So I was just like, oh yeah, they're nice people, and they teach us good things and good principles, and like I don't know what everyone's talking about with all these bad things. And to be honest, I kind of believed it in my head.
Sure.
And then
you were conditioned.
I think the thing that snapped me out of it was she had asked me, did he ever duct tape a girl's mouth shut while you were there? And I was just like, yeah, he did. And she's like, do you think that's right? And I was just like, huh, I don't think I do. And she's like, she didn't ask me any more questions after that.
This is really important. I want everyone to know about this because this is why we have some survivors that say this is the best thing that ever happened and this is where God saved them. And then we have other survivors that say it's child abuse. Mm-hmm. And so it only takes one person to say, hey, we weren't abused. These people saved us. And all of our stories just get wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't understand brainwashing. And you just nailed it right there. And you said, she just snapped you out of it. You're programmed. You're programmed. And a lot of people don't get the programming because they haven't experienced it. But we're trying to explain it. And you just nailed it. You nailed it. That was perfect.
Awesome.
Yep. Thank you for doing that. Because that's the problem. That's the problem. That's part of the problem. There's other problems. So the cops knew that this place, the kids were being abused. They specifically picked you up. They knew the story. The other survivor reported it. You didn't because you were brainwashed. You were on autopilot, right? But at least that other survivor did report it. Okay. Cops reported it. This was a statement. They picked you up at the facility because they were afraid you were being abused.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing has been done. By the way, how much did your parents pay for this every month?
I'm not sure. All I know is that it was somewhere in the thousands. It wasn't cheap.
Okay, somewhere in the thousands monthly.
Yes,
monthly. Okay.
So essentially, what happens is that your parents are paying for your child to be abused and be a slave.
It's awful. They get free labor. Everybody's a slave.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even take you to get medical attention. They call you a faker, and yet there's a nurse. So the owner of the place is a nurse. It's just highly abusive. It's criminal, and these people are getting away with all kinds of things, all kinds of allegations. Speaking of which, there were rape allegations. Did you ever see at this compound anyone massaging the owner of this place? Did you notice girls in the office for long periods of time? Anything out of the ordinary?
Yes, I did see. There was only one girl that I saw massaging the owner. She was massaging his head. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say her name, but
you don't have to. You don't have to.
I think she was like, I want to say 13 or like some young age like that. But I guess she wasn't the first one to like be assigned to do this job. But I guess he'd like had previous girls do that, and he'd only allow a certain person to do it. Like he said, he only allowed people he trusted to do it, and that he only allowed people he trusted to go in his office. Now, I'm not trying to put anyone down about their appearances or anything like that, but another thing I noticed was the prettier girls were in the office more, like girls who were, like older, maybe like the 17 or 18-year-olds, girls who just were very attractive in appearance. They were in his office more, and they're in there for longer amounts of times. I'd also notice that girls who are very attractive, they get promoted very quickly, and that would put them in the office because only like red shirts and like higher shirt colors were allowed in the office area. However, there have been a lot of rape allegations. I can't confirm them, but I can't deny them because that would be taking their truth away. But one girl was raped. She was a pink shirt. She said that she was raped. And then as soon as someone says they're raped, that person's on lockdown by the owners. They can't speak to anyone. They're put on the wall, and they're basically segregated from everyone. And he will sit there and say that she's lying, and Satan is using her to lie against them, and
they torture a rape victim instead of reporting it. They're supposed to report it, and instead they shamed her and they tortured her.
And they shame her, and then like usually when someone said something about rape, they were just gone the next day. They just like vanished. And you don't know where they went because you didn't know them. I don't know if their parents picked them up or something like that, but they just be gone within like 3 days or something. Carly Jean, you heard about her. She was a red shirt, and she was in the office very often, just like all the time. And she was like, like one of the more attractive people. And she was very beautiful. And she would just be in the office all the time. And I think one day one day she had been put on the wall for something. Brother household had put her on the wall, and she was just crying. And I think one of the staff members asked her what her problem was, and she admitted that she had gotten raped. And as soon as she said that, she was isolated from everyone else. She was demoted. And what they told us was she used to sit at this table and she's not to look at anyone. She's not to speak to anyone,
Oh,
and no one's allowed to talk to her. And the next day she was just gone. She just vanished.
I remember because I interviewed her. Did you ever watch the interview, or haven't gotten around to it yet?
The only interview I watched was Amanda's interview.
Amanda's. Okay, I'll send you over Carly's. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, I'll attach Carly's onto the end of yours.
Mm-hmm.
So you did notice a 13-year-old girl massaging the owner of the compound.
Yes,
Anything of him spreading his hands out like this, and girls putting his coat on, fixing his tie.
no, I did not see that.
You didn't see any of that. Okay, I noticed a parent noticed that in church. Actually, it was Carly's mom. I had Carly's mom on the show. I don't know if I told you that or not.
One of the things that my mother complained about is that as soon as I got out, she complained about the fact that there was no communication between her and the owners, and that for most of the time she would call and she wouldn't get any answers about me, and it would just be like complete disconnect, and she was upset about it. So I'm not sure about the interview because of the fact that she didn't know anything,
Right.
like not even if I was sick or anything like that.
Oh, and that's a red flag. If you can't talk to a child in one of these programs, if you can't just come at the drop of a hat, and show up at this place at any given time, your child should not be in this place.
And it's not just a trap for the children, it's a trap for the parents as well, because as soon as you sign the contract, you have to agree to pay this certain amount of money monthly. Now, let's say you want to take your child out early. You have to pay for the rest of the 2 years. So you could just easily be paying $10,000 right then and there because you took your child out early. So parents would want to take their children out, but they couldn't afford that amount of money that they'd have to pay if they took their child out early.
Unless there's child abuse and
Right.
you're within that statute of limitations, I think your parents should
They
sue.
did get kicked out of the church, and if you go online and like
I
research,
heard that. Yes.
if you go online and you like research, like, should I send my child to Circle of Hope, or like, what's Circle of Hope about? You'll just get a bunch of comments saying that you should not send your child there. Now, beforehand, the way it was is just it was a complaint board, and it was a bunch of people arguing. But like Google will actually pull it up in bold for you, like saying all these comments and whatnot.
Oh,
So
wow.
you cannot. Hopefully, parents are researching before they send their child to this place, and they'll be able to see these bold letters saying, "Do not send your child here. This is a bad place." And honestly, I think I really don't want to blame the parents for any of this that happened, but it wasn't unknown that Circle of Hope was abusive. If people
Right.
had done research, that people had like gone on Google or like found out more about this place, they would have known that this is not a good place to send their child to.
Right. And that's exactly what you would tell parents. So that was my next question. What would you tell parents today who are
Mhm.
contemplating sending their child to one of these types of programs?
Mhm.
What would you tell them to do? Work it out at home? Get a counselor? What would you recommend?
That's a very tricky question. I've thought about this question for a while now, and to be honest, from day one, as soon as that child is born in the hospital, or the day that you sign the adoption papers, that child is yours till they turn 18. And like, I feel the need to tell them that it's just something that you need to stick it out, and like not just be like, oh, I'm just gonna sit here until she turns 18 in my corner. No, but you need to love them, and they need to learn from you, and like you need to teach them things and stuff like this, and you need to connect with them. They're gonna like push you away. They might have a little might have issues. They might have a lot of things going on. They might be angry or anything, but you have to persist and persist and persist, and like continue to love them, because I mean, it's your kid. Why would you want someone else to raise your own kid? Why would you want to miss her 16th birthday? Why would you want to miss her 17th birthday, or any birthday that she's about to have? Why would you want to miss her going to college or graduating? Like, that's we have so much this small amount of time on earth, and you can only have so many children before you're at the time where you can't have any more. So, I mean, even if she is hell in a basket, just stick it out, you know?
And there are other alternatives as well. James Swift, he is a survivor of a conversion therapy. He has alternatives for parents that are contemplating sending their kids to these programs. It's helpforteens.org, and I will have it on a ticker beneath us right now. And then also heal-online.org. They have alternatives. They have other solutions. What are part of your coping mechanisms for dealing? You have a lot, and you're fresh off the boat. I mean, this just happened 4 years ago. I'm almost 50. So there's a lot of years that have passed by for me. How are you coping?
Coping, it took me a long time to get over it. To be honest, when I came out of boarding school, I was just so overwhelmed with the happiness of being home after 2 years. I kind of like washed all the trauma out, and the brainwashing hadn't gone away completely. So a few months afterwards, I was still like, "Oh, it's not that bad of a place. Oh, it's okay." But I think through the months, I began to recall things, and I began to when I started being treated like a human again, and when I started being treated kindly, I was just like, oh, that wasn't right, and like, because I'd forgotten what it was like to be treated kindly, or like to go to bed whenever I wanted to, or not to have to ask to go to the bathroom. And then I think one day I was just like, okay, Mom, I got to tell you something. So this place was not the best, and all these other things. So through that, I've just been getting. I became more and more angry with the way things went, but a little bit more down the line, just other.
I'm sorry, did she support you? She believed in you, and obviously she did because she believed that friend that said everything. So I imagine she supported everything that you said.
She supported what I said, but I think the thing now is she just doesn't want. I don't think she wants to think about it much, because she's just. I think she's just horrified by the fact that all this stuff happened to me and she didn't know anything about it, or she didn't stop it. So I think she just tries to avoid thinking about it. When I talk to her about it, I think she kind of like tries to divert the conversation. In my eyes, I'm not sure what her actual reason is, but that's just how she comes off.
And a lot of parents do that. They are filled with a lot of shame and guilt, and it could swing in so many different directions. One, you're a liar, you're not telling the truth. I'm talking from experience. And the other could be, I support you, but now let's move on. Let's hop on another conversation. They don't want to dig too deep into it because it's too painful for them. But maybe instead of saying it's too painful to them, they'll just switch gears, and then you're left with, well, I really want to talk about this because I need to talk about it, and I would like to, share so I can get things off my chest. Have you thought about going to counseling?
I have a few times, but the way my head works is just that I feel that I have to find happiness in myself, and I need to find, if I'm upset or like if I'm troubled about something, I need to find like help within myself. But back to coping mechanisms. To be honest, I think the only coping that I've done from these 4 years is just this movement that we all started. This just getting on TikTok and the media and everything, and knowing just that people are being heard, and that we've actually reached 56 million views, and that that something is going to change.
I feel that the bonding between the sister survivors have been such a healing experience for all of us, and it just is empowering. There is something to be said with numbers. And the more and more survivors that come on to my show, it's actually a healing experience for me, because you're just validating what happened to me in a sister program. By the way, this is a Lester Roloff program. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Okay. And for those that don't know Lester Roloff, he opened up a school in 1968 called the Rebecca Home for Girls, where he abused girls. And then from there, he's the mastermind behind all of these programs. They're independent fundamental Baptists. And New Bethany, Circle of Hope is one of them. Victory Christian Academy, Genesis by the Sea, Agape, which is the boys' school, the boys' home, and Lighthouse. and they're all connected. I know there are other schools that are connected with that too, but whether or not they're lesser roll-off homes or not, there are over 100,000 homes like the one that Dajah has talked about today. And that's sad. And it's happening in the U.S. I'm talking just U.S. I'm not even hitting international. Is there anything that you foresee in the future in the next 5 years? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, whether being an activist amongst the survival community or wherever you feel that your journey is going to take you? What do you project?
Well, I do want to kind of like branch off the activist thing. I don't want to stop with Circle of Hope. I want to keep with like every abusive home that there is, and not just the boarding schools, but like homes like with families and things like that, and like even places overseas. Like there's some Japanese orphanages that are just like terrible. They're awful, and people have nightmares from these places, and believe it or not, there's places that are worse than this place that we've gone to, and I feel like
so sad.
I feel like there's more to do other than Circle of Hope. Like we can't stop there. So I feel like an organization needs to form up from this and like to prove to people that it can be possible, but we just all have to try. You know what I mean?
There is an organization, heal-online.org is another organization that will help survivors and help parents if they have any kind of questions, if they're contemplating sending their child to one of these programs, they have the information. Helpforteens.org is James Swift. He survived, I want to say, almost the worst case of child abuse inside a lockdown conversion therapy where it was a camp here in America, and it was a torture chamber where they were if I tell you, they were putting kids in cages and feeding them dog food, and that is light compared to the torture he endured. He's on Netflix, Haunted Season 2. All of it is true. It is called Cult of Torture. Oh, wow. It is the third one down. I'm on there supporting him, by the way, on Netflix.
That's a lot to take in. Some people just like, they hear it and they're like, oh, I don't want to hear it, or I don't want you to talk about it because it's just too painful to hear. But like, there's no other way that it can be fixed if you don't listen, you know?
That's exactly right. Thank you so much, Dajah, for being on the show. You are such a light in the midst of darkness, and I love what you're doing for these survivors. Keep up the good work, and hopefully you'll write a book, maybe do a screenplay on the subject matter, but keep doing what you're doing and exposing these homes because, you know, like you said before, how are we going to do anything unless we face the music?
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dajah, for being part of Pieces of Victory and being brave enough to tell your story of what really goes on behind closed doors in these lockdown residential programs. If you are contemplating sending your child to a boot camp, conversion therapy, wilderness camp, reform school, rehabilitation program, please reconsider. Please watch our stories. If you have a 1% chance that this could happen to your child, why would you even take that risk? My name is Janine Miller, and you are watching Pieces of Victory.